The leader of Hezbollah has become a man in need. Did the fear of the IDF take over the terrorists? I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is going on in Israel on this 143rd day of the war against Hamas. But before we talk about what's going on in the Gaza Strip, we need to take a look at the northern border with Lebanon, where the Iranian-backed terrorist organization Hezbollah continues to fire rockets and anti-tank missiles into Israel daily and threatens to do much worse. Hezbollah is led by Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, who has spent decades brandishing his public image into a weapon of psychological warfare against Israel. The speeches he periodically broadcasts are aimed at a wide audience, but there is often an emphasis on the Israeli public. These speeches are dripping with arrogance, coolness, and cynicism. They convey a message that he is vastly more intelligent and powerful than the Israeli leadership. Sometimes they even include hints that he cares about the Israelis more than their own leaders do, and he's actually trying to move things in a direction that would be better for them than what these leaders have in mind. But in his last two speeches, that changed. They did not contain pearls of wisdom or clever turns of phrase, as he likes to use, coming from calculated planning and preparation of the speech. Instead, these were particularly militant speeches, and the main emotion that arose from them was anger. When a calculated and strategic person like Nasrallah loses it, it is a sign of the predicament he is in. On the one hand, he is not interested in a war with Israel at this time. On the other hand, there is a low-intensity conflict, and his forces are clearly being beaten by the IDF. The optics of Hezbollah are very bad, and Hassan Nasrallah knows that the whole world is watching. For several months, he scored some significant propaganda victories. The fact that the north is empty of residents is a significant achievement for him, but the latest attacks by the IDF on key members of Hezbollah changed the equation. And if the reality on the ground is not enough, Israel's Minister of Defense, Yoav Gallant, has begun to pick at his wounds with great skill. He issued a statement recently indicating his ability to speak Arabic, to understand the rules of the game. After he had finished listing the IDF's achievements in the south, Gallant moved to the north. Hezbollah went up half a click. We went up one step, but it's one step out of 10, he said. We can attack not at 20 kilometers, but also at 50 kilometers and in Beirut and anywhere else. And then he added with a meaningful wink to the planes that are now flying over the skies of Lebanon. They have targets. They know how to attack them. They know how to change the attack from place to place. We are ready to cut the glue from Gaza to Beirut. In plain language, Gallant is telling Hezbollah, when there is a ceasefire in Gaza, we will transfer the tremendous force from the Gaza Strip to you in Lebanon. This has already driven Hassan Nasrallah out of his mind. So in his last speech he said, I want to remind the enemy's Minister of War that he is 3/4 Majnun. Hezbollah has a tremendous and accurate rocket capability that reaches from Kiryat Shmona to Eilat. To explain, Nasrallah would probably like nothing better than for this round of hostilities to end, but he has no choice. He must continue playing this game of chicken against Gallant. Although he wants people to think that he has an orderly plan where every step is considered and planned, the obvious truth is that he has no idea what the next step will be. Gallant is driving events, not him. In this situation, Gallant appears to think that it's worth the risk of a head-on collision with Hezbollah, because Israel can sustain the damage from such a collision, but Hezbollah cannot. On the other hand, Nasrallah faces two grim prospects. Either he backs down, in which case he will be humiliated in front of his people and the entire Arab Muslim world, or he forges ahead with a war against Israel in which Hezbollah will be utterly annihilated. However, some would say that it would be good for Israel to provide him with a way out of this dilemma to avoid a war that would be very costly to everyone. I'm Yair Pinto, bringing you the truth, and I ask you to share our videos and follow us to continue to spread the truth with us. And please continue to pray for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. Switching focus now to the Gaza Strip, where there is an unfolding story in and around the Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. During the last weekend, the targeted activity of the 98th and 13th Forces in the area of the Nasser Hospital that were operating against the terrorist organization Hamas ended their operation. During the operation, unused sealed medicines with the names of Israeli hostages were found in the hospital, along with large stockpiles of weapons and ammunition. Additionally, about 200 suspected terrorists were arrested, including some who had tried to dress up as medical staff to hide their identities. The activity at the hospital was carried out while ensuring minimal damage to the hospital's current operations and without harming the patients and the medical staff. Another detail of the story that makes me proud to be in the IDF is that the IDF provided an alternative generator that enabled the continued functioning of the hospital and the treatment of the patients. These are Palestinian patients. This allowed the hospital to continue functioning even amidst shortages of electricity that are common in the Gaza Strip. Throughout the IDF operations inside the hospital, the vital systems of the hospital continued to function on the basis of an uninterrupted power system, UPS. Hamas actually tried to attack and destroy this generator so they could cut off the hospital's electricity supply and blame the Israeli troops. This is another example of the cynical use Hamas makes of Gazan civilians for propaganda purposes. But the IDF coordinated the entry of Israeli professionals to examine the electricity problem in the hospital, defeating Hamas's plan and solving the problem. In addition, in the last week, the hospital received a supply of hundreds of food packages, including water, food, medical equipment, baby food formulas, and additional supplies. Also, the placement of diesel tanks was coordinated with the international community in order to continue operating the generators at the hospital. As part of the patient care effort, at the request of the hospital staff and in cooperation with the international community, a number of patients in need of critical care were transferred to other hospitals in Israel. Before the troops left the hospital, the area was cleared and another delivery of food was made. It is important to note that the IDF announced that it will continue to act in accordance with international law against the terrorist organization Hamas, which systematically operates from within hospitals and other civilian infrastructure. Elsewhere, this week saw fighters from the Givati Brigade beginning to deploy in the Ibsanin neighborhood in East Khan Yunis. The deployment was already resulted in several raids which uncovered weapons and ammunition stocks meant to be used by Hamas against Israel. Several terrorists have also been taken off the battlefield in these operations. One structure in the Ibsanim neighborhood was found to contain a medical laboratory and a rocket launcher hidden inside a refrigerator. That's new. In another incident, a shootout with terrorists ended with the rescue of a Palestinian family that the terrorist organization Hamas had been trying to use as human shields. Major combat operations in northern and central Gaza have essentially ended, but there is still a lot of work for the IDF to do there, mopping up the terrorists who are determined to fight to the bitter end. In Lebanon, the IDF has been systematically bombing Hezbollah's ammunition depots for a week now, hitting many positions that Hezbollah probably thought were secret. The IDF has been using cutting-edge technology to find these secret weapons storage facilities and systematically eliminate them. There is also fighting in the air, as Hezbollah sends drones into Israeli airspace to probe and spy, but the Israeli Air Force makes short work of these drones, shooting them down quickly and putting an end to the threats they pose to Israeli civilians. I want to salute a hero of Israel who fell on October 7th, but his body was kidnapped by Hamas to the Gaza Strip. Sergeant Oz Daniel, 19 years of age. He is a fighter in the Sar Megolan formation, an IDF soldier that was kidnapped by the terrorist organization. Please continue to join me in spreading the truth, sharing with whoever you know what is happening in Israel and the Middle East. And most importantly, join me in prayer for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. This is a regional war, and we need your help in prayer and in support.